All right, let's cut through all the noise. Today, we're taking the raw, kind of chaotic mess of a single day's news cycle, and we're going to find the real stories hidden inside. Let's jump right in.
You know that feeling, right? You open up your phone and it's just this tidal wave of information hitting you all at once. It's overwhelming, it feels totally disconnected, and honestly, it's almost impossible to get a clear picture of what's really going on. Well, that's the exact problem we're here to solve. So you start scrolling, and bam, the first thing you see is this, a super high-stakes military rescue. It's dramatic, it feels urgent, and it immediately sucks you into the story of international conflict. But then you scroll down once and talk about whiplash, the topic completely flips on its head. All of a sudden, we're talking about domestic regulations, the economy, the food supply. I mean, that's a world away from a downed airman in Iran. And before you can even really process that, you get hit with a third story. This time, it's a huge political battle right here at home, with state governments going up against the White House. Each headline is obviously important on its own, but when they're all jammed together, they just feel like noise. So how are you supposed to make any sense of it? Well, you do it by finding the patterns, and that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to sort these scattered headlines into three main themes: what's happening globally, the political battles at home, and the pulse of the nation's economy. And then we're going to connect all those dots to show you the bigger picture. Okay, let's kick things off with that first theme. When you really look at the day's international news, you start to see this clear picture of both conflict and cooperation. It really shows how the US is dealing with the rest of the world. And whoa, the language being used is incredibly high stakes. I mean, this quote right here, pulled straight from a headline, it just sets a tone of immediate confrontation. This isn't some quiet, subtle diplomacy. It's an ultimatum, plain and simple. And it's all focused on a supercritical waterway for shipping oil. Now, what's so interesting here is that this shows the conflict isn't just tough talk. It's actually playing out on multiple fronts at the same time. You've got direct military action, like that rescue mission. You have things happening at home that have international blowback, like the arrests in California. And you've got geopolitical fallout, with allies like NATO getting caught up in it all. But here's the twist. At the very same time all that is happening, a completely different strategy is playing out somewhere else. While the approach with Iran is all about confrontation, the headlines show a cooperative strategy with Taiwan. You've got lawmakers proposing more military support with drone tech, and senators pushing Taiwan to boost its own defense budget. This contrast really shows you how complex and, frankly, how multifaceted foreign policy can be. Okay, let's shift gears and bring our focus back home for our second big theme. Because just like on the world stage, the headlines on the domestic front show a really clear pattern. For every action, there's an immediate and forceful reaction. This is a cycle you see playing out over and over in the news. Step 1. The executive branch does something big, in this case, an order about federal elections. And what happens next? It's almost instantaneous. Step 2. A bunch of states get together and file a lawsuit to stop it. This isn't just a simple disagreement. It's a fundamental fight over power and policy, and it's being fought in the courts. And this whole action-reaction thing isn't just a one-off. It's happening everywhere you look. We're seeing legal fights over subpoenas for the head of the Federal Reserve, clashes over something that seems as small as White House construction, and new rules on the very sensitive topic of religion and politics. Even the public is split, weighing in on hot-button issues like voter ID laws. So the main takeaway here is that this division, it's a defining feature of what's going on at home. All right, on to our third theme, the economy. And honestly, if you were trying to figure out how the economy's doing from these headlines alone, you'd probably be pretty confused, because the story they're telling is full of some powerful contradictions. So on the one hand, you have some genuinely good news. A headline talking about 12 million small businesses getting an average of $7,000 in tax relief. That's a big deal. That is real, tangible good news that affects a huge part of the economy. But of course, that's not the whole story. This slide perfectly captures that economic push and pull. For every piece of good news, like Mercedes dropping a massive $4 billion investment or a big strike ending, there's a counterpoint. You've got dozens of meat plants facing shutdowns because of new rules. Rising mortgage rates mean higher house payments, and fewer people are applying for loans. Even as U.S. oil production is hitting new records, consumers are dealing with higher costs. It's a story of growth and pressure happening at the exact same time. So, we have our three distinct themes: global tension, domestic division, and economic contradiction. Now for the fun part. Let's put it all together and see what the bigger picture really looks like. You know, what we've been doing this whole time, there's actually a name for it. It's called semantic clustering. I know, it sounds a little academic, but it's actually really simple. It's just about taking that fire hose of chaotic headlines and grouping them by topic. And when you do that, the noise starts to fade away, and the real stories, those underlying patterns, they start to pop.
So what are the big stories from our single day of news? Well, first, we see a nation trying to find its way through a really tense global landscape, using both confrontation and cooperation to do it. Second, we see a nation that's deeply divided at home, where pretty much every political action causes an equal and opposite reaction. And third, we see a nation with a really complex economy, just full of conflicting signals that create both opportunity and a lot of uncertainty. These are the real stories that we're hiding in plain sight.
See, the news isn't just a random list of events. It's a collection of clues. And by looking for these bigger themes in global affairs, in domestic politics, and in the economy, you can go from just reading the news to actually understanding it. So the next time you're scrolling through those headlines, ask yourself, what's the bigger story here? What are these headlines really trying to tell me?